2 minutes in, so. Start.
To move the slide.
Phil has the clicker.
Only a couple of families.
Yeah. Okay, alrighty. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Is this working? Okay. This is a special Board of Education meeting for November 4th, 2020. And if you would please rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you everyone who is joining us here in person, and thank you for people who are out in the audience who are Zooming in. And Linda, thank you for Zooming in. We see you out there. I'll try to keep my eye on you so I know when you want to speak.
Thank you.
So this is a meeting that is going to focus on, the main topic will be eventually the evaluation of the special education learning and progress in the COVID environment. So that's going to be coming up right after our consent calendar. So in any case, the consent calendar has just 2 items. Does anyone want to pull one of those items?
No.
No? Linda, need to pull an item?
No.
Okay, do
No.
I have a motion for the consent calendar?
I so moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Kaiser, a second by Tom Lando. We'll do a roll call vote to start out. Tom, how do you?
Lando, aye.
Griffin, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Robinson, aye. Hovey?
Hovey, aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we will move on to our discussion, our information, and Diane Olson, I believe, is going to lead this for us. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, and thank you for having us here today to talk about the Chico Unified Reopening Plan for Student Support Services and Special Education. I have here with me today, I'm Diane Olson. I'm the Director of Student Support and Special Education. Next to me is Dana Feingold. She's the coordinator and with the specialty in mild moderate curriculum. Next to her is Aaron Feingold. I'm sorry, Sabran, and he has specialty in preschool and mod severe curriculum. Next to is Gina Payton, and Gina is our specialist in behavior. And then next to that is Damie Trowbridge, and Damie is our specialist in mental health and social emotional well-being. So we're going to be presenting to you information on how it's gone this year for special education reopening. And so you received our packet, and our topics and talking points today are on this page, the challenges faced, and then how we've addressed those, how we've done curriculum, how we've moved forward with that. We're also going to be talking today about some of the challenges we've had. And in talking about the challenges, we have brought 4 speakers today. They are online in Zoom, and so they're going to be sharing with you. But overall, our challenges are really around that area of providing meaningful instruction to students who aren't able to access and utilize technology during this time that we've had distance learning and then transitioning to online learning and then doing assessments. So our presenters today are, I'm going to start with Margot Henderson, our OT. Margot, are you out there?
Great, I am. I'm right here. Hi.
Hi, I'm Margot Henderson, and I'm one of 4 occupational therapists working for Chico Unified. And when all of this started, we developed a short-term plan in March that quickly turned into a long-term plan, and it stretched our brains to think more creatively how to reach our students and how to support our parents who were suddenly thrown in as full-time teachers. Initially, Wi-Fi access and bandwidth were problems, but they were quickly resolved. And then also when students had their Chromebooks accessible to them at home, then the teletherapy sessions really became more manageable and successful. One of our biggest challenges was meeting the needs of our students with higher needs, as many were not able to sit at their computers and participate like they would in a one-to-one in-person treatment. So it became our job to teach our parents, their parents, how to support their children at home. We all provided packets of work and kits that were full of materials that they would be able to use for their teletherapy OT sessions. And we also offered other larger supports to families that needed it to help address the sensory needs of some of our students. We had a lot of very fun and positive challenges too. We all learned how to make a Google Classroom, and we all learned how to use different platforms to add content to our Google Classrooms. We bolstered our technology skills and learned much more about creating effective forms and resources and videos, like how to form your letters, how to do yoga moves, and how to tie your shoes. So then at the beginning of school, back to school in August and distance learning, Chico Unified purchased a really great online platform called Presence Learning that's designed for delivery of special ed services. And we have all successfully used it exclusively at the beginning of the year to serve all of our students 100% during distance learning. And the platform allows us to create files for each of our students that are age and developmentally appropriate. It's filled with hundreds of resources that are easy to put in each student's file. And then when we're working with our students, it's very simple to just grab it and work with them quickly. And the OTs are very appreciative to Chico Unified for purchasing that. It's been really terrific and effective and very user-friendly. So back to in-person time with our students, I think all of us would say that it's been so positive and powerful and invigorating. For me personally, it's been a spark professionally and personally. Currently, all of the OTs combined are seeing an average of 76% of our direct students in person at this time. I do want to say the cleaning practices at the schools seem to be fantastic. My office and treatment space is located at Emma Wilson Elementary, and the number of times my space is cleaned throughout the day is significant. The staff continually comes in to clean surfaces, doorknobs, and the staff at the school and the office has been really supportive and terrific, making sure I have all the needed supplies, plexiglass barrier, face masks, face shields, a thermometer, all the cleaning supplies, gloves, everything that I need. It's just been wonderful. And to finish up, I'd just like to say a great, big, grateful thank you to our parents who have been so dedicated and given so much time and energy to attend to teletherapy every week. It's taken a lot. It's taken a lot of organization on their part. It's taken a lot of patience, and they've created areas for school in their homes so their kids could be successful. And that was often done while supporting other school-aged kids and many other ages of kids in the home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margot. I appreciate it. And OT, I don't know if I said that stands for occupational therapist.
Yes.
Next up is Emily Gill. Emily Gill is a preschool teacher in our moderate severe programs at Marigold Loma Vista. Emily?
Hello, thank you. So yeah, I had the opportunity to, of course, chat with a few of my fellow, preschool teachers, co-workers there at Loma Vista, and some of the common challenges that we talk about were definitely student engagement. Really, our student population really benefits from having that hands-on learning experience and supports while also having face-to-face interactions, especially our students with autism and our students who are socially and emotionally delayed. Our population consists of 3, 4, and 5-year-old students, but some of our students are at the developmental level of a 2-year-old. So learning through a screen was definitely hard and just wasn't working for some of our students. The other challenge was definitely the lack of parent involvement. I mean, unless a parent was, physically sitting right with their child, that child just isn't going to attend. And then what was particularly challenging was coaching these parents to be the teachers, as well. So those were our two challenges that would come up quite often. But with our challenges, we definitely had success. I talk about lack of parent involvement, but overall, we are having more communication with our families than ever before and forming these close relationships with our students' families have just been so meaningful. Creating that open and trusting line of communication and really just learning more about my students on a personal level and their home life and the experiences they're having. I'm just super grateful for that as well and continue to include that in my practice. And also, Google Classroom has been a great success. It really is a reliable and easy platform for parents to access materials that we provide to our students, along with, our daily Zoom links, having an area in our Google Classrooms for our group Zoom links and our one-on-one Zoom links and even our speech therapist Zoom links. It held everything that parents needed to access for their students to, get these materials and services and supports. We also have all developed our own classroom binder. Each binder is a little different, but these we found were parents just really appreciated having these binders and extra materials to use at home, from art projects to some worksheets, all relating to kind of our theme of the week or 2 weeks and our letter of the week and color of the week, as well as even having some matching folders that also were used as tangible props during our group Zoom meetings, as well as even just the visual supports that we would typically use in the classroom, a first then visual, a sitting and listening visual. So parents seem to be very grateful for those binders and really accessing them as well.
Thank you, Emily. And I know you've had your hands full of those preschoolers running around, coming back to the classroom now.
Yes, they're coming back.
Okay, next up is from our elementary level, a mild moderate RSP education specialist, Kelly Fellner.
Good evening, school board members. And as Diane said, I'm Kelly Fellner. I'm resource teacher, education specialist at Citrus Elementary. So there's been a variety of challenges, but also successes, as both ladies have been talking about, that we have come across. And for me, one of the biggest challenges has been scheduling. Students with IEPs benefit from small group instruction, and so taking for both reading, writing, and math, working on their IEP goals, meeting their minutes or as close to possible of their minutes, pre-COVID minutes of their IEPs, and then working around specialists like fine arts and music, working around their schedules, as well as the majority of my students are in general education for most of the day, so I don't want to pull them out during times that they can be successful in gen ed. So when you put all those pieces together, and then you add the 2 hour time crunch of the AM and the 2 hour of the PM, it becomes tricky. So we've gotten super creative and working together as a team with my support staff, with my gen ed teachers in kind of how to meet their needs, how to group kids together based upon some are all in person, some are in person and Zoom, and then some are just Zoom groups. So the ones that are in person and Zoom are definitely more challenging than I love them when they're right here sitting at the table with me and we can really work with manipulatives and all the hands-on things that they benefit from. So being here at school, they have toolboxes that have all their individual needs, their own counting blocks, their own pencils, all their own supplies so that they're not shared. And then for my students who are at home and who are with us via Zoom, I've provided some pickup times or dropped off on some porches so that they also have the materials needed in order to do our small groups. Another challenge, especially early on, was Zoom as a whole. Lack of participation. Students would go into their gen ed maybe for part of it and then disappear. And so having them come back for their resource minutes, different times throughout the day was definitely a challenge as we built, what does this look like? What are some incentives? How do we have the students participating as much as possible? A piece of that for some of my students became the social emotional help and how to support them with their mental health, how they were at home, not only supporting them, but I became a support for many of their parents and their family members to provide ideas and strategies to really help them meet some of what their behavior goals might have been at school, but it looks very different at home. So it was kind of the balance of being really creative of how to meet their needs when they were at home. As they've transitioned back to school, some of that is still in place. So we're trying to meet those needs for some of my kiddos who have difficulties with the social piece, and recess was the hard time. And some of those, the transition has gone fairly well because we don't have recess right now. So it's not quite as much social to navigate. So it's been a little bit smooth of a transition, I feel like, to go here. And then the next transition will be now we want to build those tools for when we can, hopefully sometime soon, transition to being able to be more in a social setting as times change. And so we're still working towards those and their goals. The technology was, of course, a challenge at the beginning, but as we got more technology and we all have our systems set up of what works for us and our cameras and our videos, the kids all having their Chromebooks at home, the technology became, because we had the devices and the systems we needed, and then we were learning about things. For example, we used something called Reading A to Z or RAS Kids, and that was the online we used when we did guided reading groups. So we had our students in guided reading groups, and they're all leveled based upon their data and their scores of where they needed to be. And so the technology, we got very creative in how to share a screen and share the book, and the same kids could read the book.
Thank you.
So that kind of built into some of our successes. A couple successes, particularly would be looking at the IEPs, giving parents the choice to do IEPs via Zoom or via phone conference was definitely something that helped. I had much higher participation of parents in my IEP meetings or attending my IEP meetings, quicker getting signatures of approval or having questions. So I think giving parents a flexibility, that's something that I know as a resource team, we've kind of talked about having that flexibility in the future instead of them having to always get here. So some parents could Zoom in from work and didn't need to rearrange their schedule to come for the meeting. So, that's something kind of coming out of it. Another success is you're looking at, as those students, I kind of talked a little bit, but as they're transitioning back to school, how we can help them with that social emotional regulation of skills that we've built at home or via Zoom, and how we can support them here. So really kind of when I think about as a whole, I appreciate the support that myself or our team, we as a resource team across the district, there's 12 of us elementary resource teachers, and so we meet to collaborate. So appreciating the support from them, my students, the families, my site admin, Dana and Diane, just all having people to go to brainstorm different ideas off of is really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Callie. It's great to
Yeah,
hear about
thanks.
Citrus. And
I have a
last,
question.
oh, go ahead.
Thank you. What grade levels did you have? Were they varied, or was it just one grade level that you pulled out of the gen ed classes?
So I have kindergarten through 5th grade. So I have varied. So I tend to try and do them. Typically, there'll be 1 or 2 grade levels because I'm doing it needs-based also. So some of my groups might have a 2nd and a 3rd grader, or some of them might have a 1st and a 3rd grader. And the kids like that because I can pull the strengths from some of the higher or the lowers. It's kind of a mentor, and we just create it to be a successful group or time that they're together.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Kelly. And last but not least, at our secondary level, we have Nick Castle. He's a moderate severe teacher at Bidwell Junior High.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, so I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at Bidwell Junior for the mod severe level. And I mean, when we first went to distance learning in March, it was kind of, we all had this idea of, hopefully this is going to be short term, so let's just get through it. And then once we realized this is going to be kind of a long term, our thinking really shifted, like, okay, how can we get our students to really buy in, especially with ones that, have the issues with technology. So the one thing I really tried to do was create lessons that incorporated all the students in a certain way with their skill levels. So whether that's, scaffolding something down instead of having actual questions, to where they're using pictures. And, that way every kid was able to participate in every single lesson to show that, they're understanding core concepts with what we were going over. This year has been, especially with our upgraded Zoom package, has been really helpful. That's allowed us to do breakout rooms where we're able to take a large group and break it down, into small settings, so I can send out my paraprofessionals with a small group of maybe 1 to 2 kids, and work on those individualized goals that are in the IEPs. So that's been really helpful this year. And just like everybody said before, scheduling, especially at a middle school level, I'm trying to juggle kid schedules with where they need to get into gen ed and find PE, and then, be able to push in also with supports into those classes to make sure kids are successful. Reintegrating back into on-campus life. The one thing that's been really fun is, how excited our kids are to actually be back on campus, and getting to see them come every day and be, I think they realize now, like, don't take going to school for granted because of how many of them actually did miss it. I think we overlooked that part. And, our kids are genuinely happy to be back on campus. At least for my class. I can't say for everybody, but they really enjoy it. It's also really helped to build peer collaboration. When we first started, I shared multiple, online resources with other teachers across the district. And our Google Drives filled up real fast with different things shared across the board. So, that's been kind of fun to see how other teachers teach, and then you get to pick from that and, implement that into your class. So it's been good team building, but, it's definitely had its challenges, but we're making the best of it, I think. So.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margot, Emily, Nick, and Kelly for sharing those creative ways that you are supporting your students. I love to hear them and come into your classrooms. So as we move on to enrollment and trends, you can go ahead. Yep, thank you. In special education for both the elementary and the secondary students, we currently have 1,871 students who are eligible for special education. And last year we had close to 2,000 students receiving services, but with students graduating and moving, it did change a little. And then to the next column over, you can see, in addition to our current eligible students, we have 117 students who are in the process of a special education assessment currently. And then moving to the far right of this graph is our transportation. And we have 443 special education students who are eligible for transportation, but not all of these students are utilizing the services at this time. And then if we look down at our preschool, we have 116 students that attend the Marigold Loma Vista program. And by May, if past numbers go, we will approximately double those numbers. And then we have our DIS preschoolers with 114 who receive speech services, either in Head Start or via appointment-based services. One more. Sorry, I just talked about both of those. No.
We also have charter schools that we provide services to, and other private schools. So Forest Ranch and Wildflower are the two charter schools that still receive services for special education from Chico Unified. We also provide, send students to a more restrictive environment, an off-location environment, and that's in Orville, and that's Bases. And then we have 2 students in residential services right now. In this past calendar year, we've brought 2 back. We had 4, so we're down to 2 right now. And we're in the process of bringing 1 more of those back. And then private schools and private preschools, we provide limited services to private schools based on funding that's provided to the state for private schools funding. Usually what that amounts to is being able to provide them with assessments for what we call child find. We are responsible for finding all students within the Chico area that have disabilities and making sure we assess them. The services to those schools are very limited. It's usually consult services to give recommendations on what the family or that private school might do on their own to serve that student. Okay, timelines. Okay, and then on the state performance indicators, I skipped one, sorry. So we have, every year now we have what's called our state performance indicators or state performance plan results. These are tied very closely now to this dashboard, and it's also tied to CalPADS. So all of this reporting comes out of our special education system, and it indicates what special ed for Chico Unified, where we're doing well and where we're struggling. And when you look at this, the blue, anything in blue, those are things that are similar to the dashboard. Those are items that are also reported on the dashboard. Anything on another slide in green is going to be our preschool numbers. Anything purple is going to be our adult, and those will be on different slides. Our adult students, which are 18 to 22-year-olds, which we continue to provide service to. And then the white ones are special ed specific criteria that we have to meet. So as you can see on this one, the areas that we did not meet last year for the first time was participation in taking the SBAC tests. And I'm not quite sure. We've been analyzing data. I think there were a lot of parent requests last year to not participate, so we're really working on educating parents on the benefit of participating in that. The other area, we still met ELA, but math, as across the district, that is a challenging point, and most of those numbers are going to be at the 11th grade level, where they're testing the IM3. So for special education, we need to really work at trying to get our students up to that IM3 level. And then the last area that we didn't meet on this page is having our students in general ed 80% of the day or more. Okay, next slide. This one goes over, or Aaron, this was yours.
Okay, I can't see very well, but I think I can remember it. So this is some new indicator groups that we're getting used to getting feedback on. And so there's kind of 2 things that I think we're looking at. And one is just functionally, how are we going to use that information to make those improvements to get our students where we want them to be? But then there's also the part where we're still learning how do we document what we're doing so that we're putting information into the system correctly so that it kind of gets spit out back accurately. So we're in that early phase of trying to get those two right. Do you have any questions about those?
The next slide is on our adult programs and some of our overall disproportionality. Disproportionality has to do with over-identifying certain ethnic groups for special education. And so in the area of American Indian and African American, they proportionately are over-identified compared to other students. And then our Part C to Part B, that's preschool to kindergarten, meeting timelines as far as having those IEPs on time. We missed that one by just a couple percentage points. And then by 99.76%, we need 100% on transition goals. More than likely, that was a missed box, checkbox on one of those. So that was an area that we're working on with staff. Mm-hmm.
So when the statement is made that we are over-identifying Native American, African American, how would one know what the quote-unquote correct identification rate is? If there's more stress in the household, if there's other factors that might be compromising a child's ability to respond?
That's the unique part of these numbers, is that we know the students have needs, and so we have to identify those needs based on a disability. And so we respond, we have to do an audit with each of these numbers to show how we have identified those students. So we just turn in the information on those students and the true disability. And once that goes through, then they'll give us okay, you did the assessments correctly, they do have disabilities. They look at, it's a very complicated computation comparing white students with eligibility, and they do, it's like 3 or 4 step process to calculate that versus the ratio to the those of different ethnic groups. So I don't have that calculation in my head, but it is about a 3-step calculation to it.
I'm just wondering how Camp Fire, the North Fire, all of the homelessness fits into that. I mean, it was disproportional in a number of ways.
Mm-hmm. And the trauma that went with it, yes.
Yeah.
All right, the next slide. There we go. And so just like general education, we had many timelines that were the same. March 19th, our governor announced the closure of in-person instruction in California. And then starting March 23rd, we came back from spring break and we started planning to address the services and the instruction for students with disabilities. And then school ended on June 4th. We did offer extended school year this year for 3 weeks, and we were online with that as well.
During this whole time, the timelines will go on through this time and the next slide, talking about the things that special ed did. At the same time general ed was doing some of their process, we had added processes of contacting families, developing means to get parents' signatures in times when we couldn't pass paper back and forth, consulting with parents on how to support their students to access, and then our teams were required to complete service logs for the state on every contact with parents. Gina. Okay. Okay, so this is our parent contacts that we made. No, the next one. That's why she doesn't have it.
Oh, that one I do.
There you go.
Okay, so is this working? Oh, great. So parent contacts, that's something in special ed we've always been really good at, but during this pandemic time, we definitely increased our frequency of that. Parent or case managers mostly took the lead in contacting each student's families right from the start in March when we went out to establish how we're going to move forward for that time. We thought it was going to be short term. Then over the summer, Diane offered a full day's pay for our case managers to do a second reach out phone call to each of their families to establish the start of the school year. And then we frequently are checking in about IEP services and how those are aligning to the progress that they were making through these options that we were able to provide throughout each different phase. So, and then all of us coordinators did a second round of any family with an IEP who chose Oak Ridge. We made a personal phone call to them just to make sure we were addressing that specific child's IEP needs and what that would look like if they did choose Oak Ridge versus if they chose to stay with us. So, and I would say that process, we did get a lot of families to choose to stay with us rather than go over to Oak Ridge because of those special accommodations we were able to give them around their concerns. So,
We certainly did get a number of email parent complaints, though, complaining that they weren't getting what their kid needed. And that, I mean, I don't know if we struck out the phrase special needs, that it would be any different than the other parent complaints we had. But, you know, the aspect was that their kid wasn't getting, and I think it was just hard on everybody that
I would agree with you. I think it was
wasn't
hard on,
quote unquote normal life, however family plays that one out.
right. And yes, it was very different addressing IEP needs on a distance learning format than it is when we're in person. And we're specialized in our field with a lot of support, so that there's a whole nother layer kind of training the families and the staff to support their students, that because we all have special training too. So there was a lot of concerns and a lot of worry about those services being met in an appropriate way. I would say that now that we're back on campus and we're seeing these kids and like kind of testing and assessing where they're at on their goals, they really overall in general are making tremendous progress even in this distance learning format. And I would say from my own perspective is that increase in communication with the families and that extra coaching and support we were giving while they were still have concerns about their IEPs being met, they were getting a lot of support in that way that did help kind of bring us together. And that coupled with them coming back to school and that the students themselves really appreciating school in a different way that they haven't before. Wow, I mean, they are attending, they are sitting longer, they really are making progress on their goals. So in my small reflection as we're coming back over the last couple weeks, I think a lot more good has come out of all of this than challenges in general, which is kind of hard to say right now, actually. That's actually kind of hard to say.
Okay, as we came back in, we really had to consider, because for special education, everything is so hands-on, we had to consider curriculum. How are we going to do curriculum in such a way last March and then continuing on today? And so these next few slides are about all of the services that we've done since March 2020.
I think Emily did a nice job already explaining what was happening in preschool. And I'd say that for preschool and all the moderate to severe programs, all of the same types of online instruction were provided as anywhere else, but the content and the structure was very different. And the nice thing in terms of that parent connection that so many of us have mentioned is that at Loma we have a grant, we're probably in year 3 on called Embedded Instruction. And the thrust for the Embedded Instruction grant was for inclusion, and it's very simple about embedding the instruction in an inclusive, naturalistic environment. So because we had some of this language in place, we were able to shift that concept into embedding the instruction into the naturalistic home environment. So instead of, let's say, something that would happen at the table in the classroom, you're now talking to a parent about how to embed, instruction into their bath routine in the bathtub, which for that age group is very appropriate. So it was a nice opportunity to see another use for this outcome of the grant, and we hope to keep that concept continuing because it's so age appropriate.
Okay, then to get ready for students for the school year for the elementary, we had trainings for both our mild, moderate, and our mod severe teachers on curriculum that's listed here. And as you can see, there's a range of online programs that were purchased for students with IEPs, and in this district where our students have a wide range of needs. And then there's an example down there, it's called Unique, which is a program purchased for students with more complex needs, and it supports their learning towards more meaningful access to the general education.
Is this the secondary one? Oh, got it, I see secondary. Okay, so for secondary, we had Edgenuity. So for our students, we first tried to customize Edgenuity to meet individual kids' needs with accommodations, which you can actually customize Edgenuity quite a bit, which is nice. For the students that need a little more customization than we could do within that, we also had MyPath, which is kind of a special ed component of Edgenuity. So some students went through that MyPath one. We also had Read Live up here, and for some of our more mod severe students, we use the unique curriculum that Dana just talked about, and Touch Math. And then some students, we really needed to focus on their specific IEP goals and get really creative around how those can be implemented at home also, so variety. And now to professional development, where we did a lot of professional development around distance learning, of course, and I think the tricky part was that we didn't have experts to pull from yet within the district, right? Because none of us had done this yet. So we pulled a lot of training in from outside the district for Edgenuity, for all those curriculums we mentioned just in the previous slides. We had them come in and give trainings specific to those curriculums. We did trainings around how to implement the emergency IEP language, and then trainings for new teachers that came in around the normal stuff we always train on anyway, facilitating IEPs and writing goals and communicating with parents. Yep, and the regular stuff like Zooms and Google Classrooms, and it works.
One of the things I'm most proud of our staff is the flexibility in following the lead that we put out there, and when can we meet with our students? When can we do in-person appointment-based assessments, one-on-one? And in doing that, we also had to work with the nurses. So this slide, and it gives you the links to all of the documents that we developed in coordination with Butte County Public Health, with our nurses, to provide information on all the safety guidelines for parents, what Chico Unified was doing to keep their child safe while they were in the classroom, and then FAQs about this appointment-based services. As it turned out, the timing, which you saw on those previous timelines, of when we finally got the okay and guidance to start our in-person services came really close to when we started open schools. So we would start open appointment-based services. About a week later, we started our what we called pods at that time. And then we moved into what we're doing, no, that was cohorts, and then we moved into our in-person for everyone with the pods. So this is information on all the things that we went through for that safety. And then our nurses really worked with us, and as you saw before with the workday child care, child supervision, they developed COVID screening flow charts. We developed, especially because of the concerns with face masks, exemption processes, and we are following all of the guidance from the Butte County Public Health on implementation of cleaning safety. We've worked really closely with Kevin Boltema and his team, and with Jim and his team as the MOUs have been developed to make sure that we're following all the district policies too.
All right, so these are the California stages of reopening, and down at the bottom there are how each tier affects the delivery of special education services and assessments. So it's a little bit different as we move through the tiers. And these are the resource and special day class in-person options. The Presence Learning platform was purchased for our speech language pathologists and school psychologists. in August in order to continue to serve students at home through school closures. And this provides a platform to deliver direct teletherapy and assessments to students. So Oak Bridge Academy is also used as an online option for students receiving special education support services. 2 additional resource teachers were added in August to the school for a total of 2.5 positions now serving the needs of students on IEPs who also want to have an online independent study option.
Okay, and again, I had already mentioned the Workday Child Supervision. We did work with Tina Keene and provided many of the instructional paraprofessionals. Since we were online, we did have excess staff that was able to support that. That staff is all now returned to the classrooms so we can support general ed push-in and what's happening in the special ed classroom. And then our next steps, really to keep up the communication and professional development. Those are the 2 top key items for our special education staff as we move forward. Any additional questions?
Well, how, I mean, I think when we've had other assessments, audits as a system, we've done extremely well and been very proud of that. How's the comparison? I mean, who's the marker? Where's the high bar to jump?
So for the areas that we have not met the targets, most of those, this was the first year. Half of those markers were actually preschool, which were brand new markers, so it's a baseline, and it was a very, they were trying to figure out what the marker should be on that one. So on preschool, I think most districts missed that. I'm part of a state work group on the state performance indicators and what those markers should be. And the challenge is that in those work groups, if you've ever participated in, mostly it's people not in education in them. And they all want the markers to be 100% or whatever the or 0, whichever way is the most full inclusion. And so being part of the education system and having that balanced conversation of what is realistic.
If they're not in education, what the heck are they doing?
You can talk to Tony Thurman, maybe?
I was just going to say, we've been getting some comments that were hard to hear, so please speak up when you're speaking into the mic.
Okay, thank you, and I think we're going to switch out now.
Okay. I do want to thank Diane and her team. Delivering special education in the online and in our modified traditional manner has been a challenge, as has everything. It's been a new experience for us every step of the way. So thank you for stepping up to that challenge and making it work for our students. And I know that, you know, as always, we will have parents and students for whom it's not working, and we need to continue to hear from them and try to meet those needs as well. And I know you do.
Well, I want to salute all of you for the really difficult path you're making.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming and sharing all of that with us. Okay. We are going to move forward. This was an information item
Madam
only. They just did that.
They just did it themselves.
Yeah, they just wiped down.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah. So our next item that we're going to be discussing here is the modified traditional AM/PM model update and the educational update.
So the last time we gave you this update, we just had 2 days in our AM/PM, so we're going to give you a little bit more of an update on what's going on, and plus some attendance data for you. We'll also be going over the third option with you guys tonight, and we will also be going over, as you were directed to us, to go over the AB schedule results. Okay, as we did last time, we're going to go number of students in each instructional model, curriculum and instruction, health and wellness, safety and sanitation, and communication and technology are the things that we're going to be covering this, tonight again. And I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Karras. Are you ready, Mr. Karras?
Yes, I'm all set. So we wanted to set the stage for the discussion with some data points regarding coming back to in-person instruction with the AMPM model. And I reported out this point to you at the last board meeting. The percentage of students attending in person versus the percentage of students attending online, site-based online learners. And we've remained very steady, a little bit above 20% of our students chose the site-based online option, and that's held steady through the 28th. This slide is just more for your reference. This is schedule groups by site. We still do have a wide swing with Rosedale leading with about 50% of their kids, a little over 50%, choosing online instruction. The attendance rate, we're right up around 95%, which is kind of standard for us over the past few years. This is all-day attendance rate as opposed to period attendance. Due to the way we're coding, we're using two different sets of codes that don't really lend themselves to being analyzed in the same way. I would need to separate those online learners and in-person learners from each other to report out as a larger group. So we still do see our high needs populations, in particular our homeless and foster students, well below the average for all students. We've been, as you know, the board receives a report monthly regarding Chico Unified enrollment. And so we wanted to update you on where we were with that in the time of COVID. So the first three columns there are census day enrollments for 2019-20, 18-19, and 17-18. So you can see a steady rise in our census day enrollments. So that's the first Wednesday in October. Following the high point last October, we had dropped, I believe that's 146. Yeah. We had dropped 146 students just prior to COVID on March 5th. Okay? So from just prior to COVID to last week, we dropped 291 students. So that's from March 5th to last week on the 27th of October.
Do we have any idea why right before in March we dropped that many students?
It wasn't a drastic drop in March. It was a steady decline from the census day enrollment. And we talk about this a lot of it times in the context of budget forecasting, is that due to the campfire, now due to COVID, our population is, really, really hard to predict. I'm going to get into some more details in a second on that.
And Tim, the October 2nd, 2019 is when we hit our high point with the campfire students?
Correct. There we go. So one of the things about a district our size is that we, in a regular school year, which we haven't had for a few years now, but during a regular school year, we have a significant amount of kids coming into the district at any given time and a significant amount of kids leaving, okay? Because we are dropping so much since COVID, we wanted to dig deeper and see where are these students going, okay? So what I'm going to talk about is data from March 15th of this year to last week, and the students moving out of our district during that time period. Looking back a year at the same period of time, from March 19th to last October 26th, 2019, which was by no means a regular year because we were just coming out of the campfire, but we saw 901 students during that time period leave our district in 2019, okay? During that same time period in 2020, we've seen 581 students leave our district. So in a nutshell, less students are leaving, but significantly fewer are coming in. Take me back a slide, please. This breaks down the highest percentage of students are going to California districts outside of Butte County. So 36.5 are doing that. 19.4 are going to Butte County charter schools. 17% are moving out of state. We have one out of country even. And 14.6 are going to other Butte County schools that are non-charters. And 72 at the time this data was taken had moved to homeschooling. Just a quick update on Oak Bridge enrollment. We took a little dip in September. In the beginning of October, down about 15 from the starting point of 551, and now we're right back up to 550, so about where we started at Oak Bridge.
Okay, Mr. Sullivan, you're going to kind of go over the areas of strength.
Yep. So we certainly have been trying to reflect on things that have gone decently well, but also certainly some growth areas for ourselves during this last couple weeks with just everything going on. And one of the things that we've seen, we're going to throw kudos to Erica over there. She's done a phenomenal job with kind of coalescing information and putting it together on our website in a real user-friendly format to kind of answer a lot of COVID-related questions with those things. I think Erica was going to share for about 2 minutes here just kind of what it looks like. So if there happens to be people watching, we can maybe answer some questions about where they can find this information as well, because we get a lot of questions and we're starting to try to refer them to the website and then the parts where Erica has put all this together.
Thank you. So I am going to go ahead and pull up the Chico Unified School District website. For those who are viewing, there is information and 2 ways that you can access the COVID-19 parent resources. It's under Serving You, COVID-19. It is also available on the homepage under COVID-19 parent resources. And just to quickly walk you through some of the materials you'll find, we have the Butte County Public Health Department school guidance documents. We also have the information for daily wellness checks, how parents can know symptoms and different ways when they should send their child to school and when they should keep them home, low risk and high risk symptoms. In addition, we also have documentation from the Butte County Public Health Department about what to do if you expect COVID-19 exposure. For those in the elementary world, we do have information on the elementary school waiver back when the process first began, and we also have the school reopening plan and videos and a timeline of events during the COVID pandemic. Under the protocols for in-person instruction, we once again go into symptoms related to COVID-19 and then public health documents when a student or employee tests positive, returning to school after testing positive, what to do if you're exposed. And one other element that a lot of families have found useful is the cleaning ingredients and products that are utilized. There's also a link to safety protocols, including air filters and safety videos. We have virus information, prevention and facial coverings, and then we also have the community dashboard, which provides information for Butte County COVID updates, the California State Dashboard COVID updates, along with our Chico Unified Community updates. And The last element we have is our Chico Unified notification protocols. We continue to add to these, but what parents can expect when there is a confirmed case on campus, how they'll be notified, and where they can reach out to if they have additional questions or need additional information. And that is a brief overview of the information currently available, although it does continue to be updated.
Kathy has a question?
Yes, my understanding is the requirements from the state level health department is if an employee tests positive for COVID, that business is under mandate to tell all their other employees and provide testing, but I don't believe that applies to students.
So our procedure, our protocol that has been vetted with our school nurses who have closely worked with Butte County Health Department are that if you are within 6 feet, stationed within 6 feet, seated within 6 feet, or near the student or adult for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period, then you're quarantined regardless of test results. If you're negative or positive, if you're exposed to someone who's determined to be positive. So even if you get tested and you're negative, you still have to remain in quarantine. So the person can choose to or not, just for their own peace of mind, I guess, but it doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to return to work or to school depending on who they are.
I don't think you understood the question. The parent isn't required to tell us.
That's true, but if they are tested positive, the health department will notify us. Did I still miss it?
Well, it's just interesting since there have been cases in high schools and other counties that apparently the parents didn't tell anybody till they came back from quarantine.
So if they're tested, the health department is notified, at least in Butte County, and then
It was another county, but.
Yeah, and they have notified us whenever it's happened, even back in since summer when we had some cases in the child care, and then we've had several cases this year.
It just really, it's so critical that parents take that responsibility very seriously.
Absolutely, yep.
So some other things. We've been really impressed with kind of teachers using kind of some of the curriculum we've been bringing in place right now. I know elementary has done a great job with Wonders and Ready Math, and a lot of them are actually just using it and rolling forward with it now that we're back in person. Secondary in particular, Edgenuity, a lot of them have been really blending Edgenuity and kind of more personalized instruction as they've come back also, and a lot of teachers have moved off Edgenuity in the secondary world. Reconnecting students with peers, teachers, and support staff. I mean, them coming back, we had lots of supports put in place so that when they did come back, it was with a lot of supports in place, whether it was mental health supports, academic supports are happening with all those kinds of things as well. It's more of a secondary connection though, lots of clubs and activities kind of geared to welcome students back also and make sure that when they do come back, they are able to participate with kind of that high school experience. A slightly different version of it, obviously, with what's going on, but they definitely have those opportunities. Nutrition services doing a bang-up job providing all kinds of breakfast and lunch opportunities, everything from pick up and go as they're leaving campus to coming on campus and having breakfast or lunch there available for them. Our transportation department has done a great job transporting a lot of students. Certainly our homeless foster students are getting transported to different places during this time as well as they've been doing. Let's see, following board-adopted safety guidelines, we've been really pleased and getting a lot of feedback from staff. I mean, John's doing it, Kelly's doing it, everybody's walking through classes and just kind of asking everybody who can, do you feel like things are safe, sanitized, you know, are things going well in that area? And pretty consistently just hearing a very positive response from everybody. They really feel like things are clean, sterilized. People feel like it's a safe place to be working right now. It's kind of overwhelming the feedback I'm getting as I'm walking around. I think everybody else is hearing that as well. Online instruction at Oakbridge is going well now. I think we heard lots of good things about Pathblazer in particular compared to what was happening with Acellus. Special education services, I think Diane went over that quite a bit, but they've done a bang-up job with kind of some of their appointment-based services happening and just in small cohort groups coming in also and getting services with those areas as well. So we've been generally pleased with how things are going thus far. Certainly some areas for growth as well. And I think Mr. Shepard will hit on those in a little bit coming up.
Also, I would like to give kudos to our superintendent, Kelly Staley. She actually dressed up as one of our custodians and worked with one of our custodian crews and went through the process with them of cleaning a school. Not too many superintendents, I'm guessing, are doing that in the area. So she got a firsthand look at how we're doing on our safety protocol, so I'm pretty impressed with that.
So I think Mr. Vincent is going to talk a little bit about technology and what we've been doing in that area. Oh, I'm sorry, the wizard is behind me.
Behind the curtain.
Do you use this mic down?
So with technology, we've, as you know, we've deployed 350, actually 365 ViewSonic TVs. We've offered many trainings for our staff. We have additional trainings coming up tomorrow. I know Mr. Morgan has been working with Ed Services directly to set up those trainings. We'll also have additional trainings coming out from ViewSonic themselves. We can do more advanced trainings. Exciting news today, too. 847 laptops arrived today from back east, so they are in Chico, and we will start imaging those tomorrow with Windows. So starting next week, we can start deploying those. And so any questions about technology?
Mr. Vincent, we also just handed out one of our last hotspots. So how many did we originally purchase?
We purchased about 250, so we're ordering 25 more of those right now.
So we have reached out to our families that needed them. Between our foster and homeless liaison, Ritesh has done an excellent job of finding those families that needed them. And
Yes,
we
he has.
just, again, like Mr. Vincent said, we purchased 25 more so we have them for our families that are continuing to need them.
Ritesh has done a fantastic job on that, yes.
Okay, and as with any implementation of a seemingly brand new school system implemented within 2 or 3 weeks, there's always going to be some challenges and some areas for improvement. And you'll hear that some of the areas of strength are also still areas of improvement because we're doing some things well, but we want to continue to do them better. And I think we'll be talking more about that later. As we've been stressing throughout the conversation since last March and even going back to November of 2018, there is a significant amount of instructional time that's been lost. And so we're constantly going to be addressing learning loss specifically for our targeted student groups. We had conversations today with our DLC group about focusing on learning loss through the rest of this semester and the beginning of next year during collaboration time. It has to be at the forefront of all of our conversations because we're going to see some direct impacts of learning loss. Obviously, as kids come back in person, they're really excited to be there and seeing their friends and seeing their teachers. But after that initial honeymoon period, reality starts to set in. Some of the struggles they were facing while they were in isolation, using that word loosely, can be exposed when they're suddenly connected and dealing with some of their own trauma. So we have teams of staff, as Diane and her team have already explained, working with specific kids with their specific needs. We've been doing some more hiring. And Mr. Marchant just approved another PRF, personnel requisition form for some additional TCM support, targeted case manager support. So we're continuing to add staff as we're moving back into the next environments. We are talking with parents often about how we're going to continue to improve engagement. When teachers are using their online environments, we want to be sure that those kids are engaged, that we utilize the most valuable resource we have, and that's our teaching staff, and trying to do everything we can to improve the teacher and student engagement. And just keeping our knees bent. You know, there's so much still happening that we need to be flexible. We need to make sure that as new mandates come in, as new expectations come in, as people become more comfortable with what's going on in our environments, that we adapt to those needs. And maintaining that flexibility has been a benchmark of this school district since this has started. We've maintained flexibility, and we all appreciate that.
Okay, so this is what I talked a little bit earlier. So myself and Mr. Moretti are going to kind of talk about these other two options. One was our option 3, teachers teaching in person while streaming in the classroom. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the challenges with that first. Some of the challenges were difficulty for staff to Zoom while teaching in person. Finding out the kids that are online who need support while they're teaching them, the students in class. So that's been a challenge for them. schedule restraints for option 3 students. It's been, as you guys knew, it took us an extra week to get the schedules in place for the students that were using that option. Schedule impacts for in-person instruction. It's not doable for hands-on CTE courses. So when people are zooming in, our CTE courses, welding, culinary, they're not able to do that while they're zooming. Increased unsustainable additional physical impact. So adding 32 extra sections, it was a cost a little over $300,000 for 2 months to add those sections to have that option 3. Remember, there's 2 options that we use for online. The one where teachers are zooming while they have students in their classroom, and the other ones where they're just teaching online only from their class. So those are the 2 options. We're not having any issues when a teacher is just teaching online only in their class. But they are having some issues, and I'll have Mr. Moretti, if he's here, talk a little bit about his survey about the option 3.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have a little over 300 teachers doing that, where they're doing it at the same time, simultaneous, in-person and online. And for more than half, it's just not working well. And both groups are getting shortchanged according to the teachers. And I sent you all the comments. I don't know if you had it was 30 pages of comments, but that seemed to be an overriding perception from the staff that they weren't doing as good a job as they could. Whereas, as Jay just pointed out, where they're, especially at the elementary level, where you have teachers doing in-person, say in the morning, and only online in the afternoon, that seems to be working well, as well as in the secondary classes, where a teacher might have 4 sections of in-person and 1 section of online, which is working well. And if I could, Jay, talk about the A-Day, B-Day, because it kind of ties into this.
Sure, go ahead.
We only have 3 bargaining sessions left before winter break. And if you saw the results I sent you, we are evenly split among those respondents. 50%, 50% that want to view it, going to an A-Day, B-Day, and 50% that want to stay where they are and have that. And we saw those comments, please no more changes was a real common one. My concern is we have a couple of months before second semester where we could really dial in this the AM/PM model and dump that simultaneous model that we're using and try to figure out the scheduling of how to do it where you're either in person or online for those students that don't want to go to Oak Ridge. If we spend that time looking at the A-Day, B-Day model, we'll have to spend our negotiating time on that, and it would still have to go to a vote and getting feedback. And I'm just thinking that some of the feedback I got from counselors were like, we need time to get this worked out. And if we go down that road, they're not going to have the time to get that scheduling, and we'll be in a situation like we just went through where they had a week to get it figured out.
We also talked with different leadership groups. So we talked with our DLC Math and our DLC English. They both said, please let us stay in our schedule that we have right now. So we did ask our leadership council with those questions, and they overwhelmingly said that they would like for us to stay in the AM/PM model. Also, we asked our leadership team, all of our principals, if they could give us input. All said that they would do what we asked them to do, but if they had to choose, they would like to stay in the AM/PM model, and please do not change again. And then again, we're talking about the spring semester. We're staying status quo to get us through December 18th, but we're just talking about the spring semester. So these are the 2 things that the board asked us to kind of check in on and how they were doing and what the surveys are telling us and what the teachers are wanting. As Ms. Moretti said, with the A-B schedule, it's split almost evenly down. It's kind of like our country right now. So it's split down evenly which model that they want. And so there would be really no way to want to choose model. Either way, it's going to be tough.
Eileen?
Thank you. And thank you, Kevin, for forwarding those comments. And I did want to, you really did make it impossible to identify the person making the comment. But I really appreciated the teachers making the comments so that we could, or at least that I as a board member, it was as valuable as all of the emails we got from parents after July when, you know, when we were headed into making different decisions, to actually get that much feedback from all different directions was very helpful. And I appreciate the time you spent, Kevin, in, you know, in putting all of those comments together so we could review them. I reached out to families that, two, didn't reach out beyond two, that have secondary students. And the comments were, please don't make any more changes. That AMPM is working, as well as, you know, they just don't want us to make any more changes. The parents and the kids were definitely unanimous in that. There's also, I believe, an issue that if we play around with what we're doing now, our after-school childcare issues might be affected, and that would definitely not be a positive thing. So the cost of maintaining option 3, not only financially, but in the reduction of productivity for instruction that the teachers were indicating they were seeing in not being able to give their online students what they deserve. They really don't feel that that option is giving those students a fair shake. And if we're spending that amount of money to produce an educational experience that's not a very good educational experience, why would we continue it? So I don't have any support for myself for continuing option 3. That's just where I am.
Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to let you know, Ms. Moretti, you can speak on this too. We do have 2 schools, Chico Junior and Rosedale. They had a majority of their teachers, and Kevin sent me those numbers. I believe they were like 65%, if I remember correctly, but wanted to stay with that because of the immersion program. And again, on a slide you saw earlier that Mr. Karras showed that we have a high number of students at Rosedale that are Zooming in, and both those schools, at least through their survey, majority of them said they would like to continue to do it, and both of their principals said that they would.
And just to clarify, and this is not an important point, but it is a point that they're cost neutral. It'd be cost neutral to continue those.
Kev, is that?
It's cost neutral. It doesn't cost us anything.
Oh, it doesn't cost us anything?
Correct.
Your mask is
We're cost neutral.
cost neutral, okay.
Kevin, what did you have on? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's not the data that I saw in what I sent you. But at Chico Junior, there was a vast majority of the teachers were doing it, and it was working well, but I didn't see them wanting to continue it. At Rosedale, very few were doing it, and I'm only talking about simultaneous. I think most of the Rosedale teachers are doing in person in the morning, say, only, and online in the afternoon, after lunch.
Yeah, you're correct on that.
But the Chico Junior numbers, and I didn't ask the question the way it should have been asked for what we're talking about. The way we said it was, would you want to make it the only way the district thinks it could work, that's this option 3 simultaneous, if we made it mandatory. And the vast majority of Chico Junior were no on that.
Yeah.
But that's a different question, I think, than what we're talking about here.
Correct.
If it's okay, Mr. Marchand, I have Mr. Moretti's notes here, just to be specific. So according to the notes here, there were 28 teachers at Chico Junior out of the 49 that were using it. And of those 28, 5 said it wasn't working well, and the 23 said it was. Just so we have the information from the survey.
Yeah, Tom.
So I'm just having a little bit of a semantic issue here, I'm afraid. When we proposed option 3, I think a lot of us said, hey, this synchronous hybrid is not going to work. So I'm not super surprised that's being borne out. But the other version of option 3, which is teachers doing say in secondary, 4-1 or a 3-2 split, to me that's still option 3. Do we have some other special code name for that now? And if we were to switch all of the, if we were to remove the hybrid synchronous option and just do 3-2 or 4-1 splits at secondary or AM, PM, is there an additional cost there?
So I think what we're looking for here is direction from the board, because when we first started, if you remember way back in July, we had 2 options for the AM/PM, or for the modified traditional. And if you wanted to be online, it would be Oak Ridge. If you wanted to come back in person, you would come back in person and stay with your school site. So when we were making the transition to modified traditional AM/PM, it became very clear that we still had families that weren't comfortable coming back in person, but were really connected to their teachers and their school site and wanted to stay there. And the first one that really jumped forward was Rosedale. And they said, you know what, we've got an option that will work. Can we have flexibility to do something for our families? And we're like, absolutely. And then many other, and eventually all of the elementary schools came forward with that. That really did not happen at the secondary level initially. There were some isolated cases where some teachers were like, absolutely, Zoom in, stay with our class. But we did not have a well-articulated or even articulated plan for secondary. So it is no surprise that when there was direction from the board that let's go with, let's try to find an option 3. And it came from all of us. We want to meet the needs of our kids, we want to meet the needs of our families, and we really worked to try to make this happen. But I think the idea going in for secondary was exactly what you said. The way to make it work when you have so many different options on a high school campus, you cannot replicate all of those classes. And many of them are singletons. So, the way that people went about doing it was, can kids Zoom in or do the passive Zoom or, watch online? And that is really difficult. And I can say just from, the teachers that I've seen doing it, they're like, I feel like I am letting the kids that are joining in from online down. I'm not meeting their needs. So one of the options that we are now looking at for secondary is completely blowing up the master schedule, rebuilding a master schedule that has options that are online only with a teacher that is at their home school. However, we just have to be very clear, and I want this to be clear to the board as you consider direction for us. We will not be able to offer all of the classes that we offer on our high school campuses right now in both an in-person and an online format. And in fact, we struggle at times to fill all of the classes that we want to offer in a CTE sequence or in an AP sequence. Sometimes we'll have to alternate AP classes. So to do it both in person and online is just not going to be doable. It's not feasible. So I just want to be real clear about that. But yes, that is an option that we're looking at the secondary level.
Yeah, Kathy.
So my understanding was that the brunt of the complaints, and I'm separating that from the wishes, the brunt of the complaints about going to Oak Ridge in secondary was that their typically elevated course desires weren't provided. They wanted AP, and AP wasn't provided, correct?
There are some AP classes that are provided through Edgenuity. Not all of the courses that we currently offer are provided through Edgenuity.
And so then the question would be, Oak Ridge went up in enrollment quite a bit. Is it feasible that where the online classes at a particular school are really low enrollment, that we could move them to Oak Ridge and gain a greater fiscal impact?
One of the other things that we were looking at, sorry, Kelly, one of the other things that we're looking at, AP teacher at Chico High or an AP teacher at PV, if they combine the class together,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So we can use, a teacher at one of the schools to teach that class at both schools, online.
Right. I mean, I think that some of the expressed desires were wishes. I really like my teacher, this particular, but if we could do that kind of collaborative compression, I guess you would say, and still offer through Oak Ridge, one of those courses, that would seem like that would be really helpful. From reading the comments that Kevin got, and I think that it wasn't just that the teachers are frustrated with the workload. The kid checks in and then disappears. They can't monitor what the kid's doing. And if the parent isn't home, nobody's monitoring. So that makes it really, really difficult when our big concern is loss of learning.
Right. Just really quickly, another option we plan to offer students is the additional instructional services options that provide AP seat licenses per student. And so it's in a low enrollment AP class, we could take 3 or 4 students and they could take 4 of their classes still on their comprehensive site and then take 2 AP classes through seat licenses, and they're individual. And it'd be a significantly less cost. Again, this isn't all about money, but it is a little bit about money. And so we feel like we can take care of the needs of some students using the Edgenuity instructional services as well.
And Tom, I just want to let you know, you're correct. If teachers were teaching 4 and 1, there isn't really a cost if it all works out. We feel it's going to be a lot less. We probably might have to have a few sections here and there added, but not like what we're doing right now with the 32. We really wanted to try to meet the needs of our families when they're asking that they wanted to stay in touch with their teachers and stuff like that in this environment, and we gave it that effort, and we will continue that through this semester. But we just, at this point, we don't feel, and again, this is not me. It's a tough decision to make moving forward.
Okay, Eileen?
I have a question. With as many concerns about Edgenuity as we've heard, why would we continue to use Edgenuity as the basis for online-only curriculum for our secondary kids?
So I think there's a difference here. When you choose to be in an online-only program, as the students that are at Oak Ridge did, you want that flexibility to do your work within your own time sequence. A lot of times we have people that want to travel. There's various reasons that people go to an online-only format. And it does work well for those that, if that's their choice. Where it did not work well is if what you want is interaction with your teacher, to be surrounded by your peers, whether that's online or in person. That is not Edgenuity. Edgenuity is very, one-on-one instruction. It is standards-based. It is rigorous. You definitely get learning. Learning takes place if you are engaged with the program. But it is not for all kids, and I think we learned that. I don't think we ever had any intention that we would be on it as long as we were, but we did want to ensure that our kids started off the year with a very standards-based, definite instructional program. And what we've learned through that is, again, it's great for some kids, but we really have a lot of kids that what keeps them engaged, what keeps them coming to school is that connection with their teacher. And that isn't provided through Edgenuity. So that's why we're looking at the site-based program where, yes, we could have some online courses that we could have them at the site that are Edgenuity, but if we have teachers that are teaching a course, they can be doing their own course-specific instruction via Google Classroom.
So that's what we're really distinguishing here, is this third option was an effort to have teachers kind of combine both, right? Their teaching and allowing the Zooming in, which hasn't been working, hasn't been effective, hasn't been well liked by the teachers. They're not thinking it's been effective with the students. So what's being proposed then is that you'd either have, you would schedule things where students could either have an online experience where the teacher is actually teaching. It's not an Edgenuity-based, the teacher is teaching their own way, the class, correct? Or, well, it either has to be Edgenuity-based or not, right?
Well, just like we have right now, we do have teachers that are using Edgenuity still, even in an in-person environment, and we have teachers that are doing their own instruction based on their curriculum. So right now, we do have both going on.
But is our plan to come the next semester, spring, whatever, switch over where you will choose then, you will either have in-person instruction where your teacher, you're there, you're in the classroom, or you are going to have this online version. But we're not saying we're going to mandate that it be non-Edgenuity. We're not going to mandate that.
So that is a discussion that is coming up in negotiations tomorrow. They're having discussions about instructional methodologies. I will tell you that if you are at a school site, it would be my preference. I don't get to make this decision, but it would be my preference that we have teachers teaching and delivering their curriculum. If you want the Edgenuity experience, you can take courses at Oak Ridge. And we do offer the ability, we always have had the ability for students to take some courses at Oak Ridge and some courses on the comprehensive high school campus.
So are we? Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Linda, was that you?
Oh, yes, it's me.
I didn't see your face, sorry. Go ahead,
It's okay.
please.
How many students are we talking about with option 3? Maybe if someone from district office can tell me approximately how many secondary and how many elementary students are taking advantage of this option 3?
Yes,
All versions of it?
I can talk about the high schools first. So I think we had about 600 schedule changes, 300 at each high school. And all of the, currently, all 3 junior highs have kids using option 3. It's Bidwell and Chico Junior are 100%, Marsh is almost 100%. So I don't know if the number of students right now would be reflected in the second semester. We still need to have parents complete a enrollment selection to make that determination. But I can tell you at the high school level, we have about 600 kids whose schedules had to be changed to offer them that option. And the counseling staff, by the way, were fantastic.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That is a lot. Have we gained any students back since we've moved into tier orange, coming back to school in person?
Looks like Oak Ridge actually stayed about the same, if my correct on your slide earlier, Tim.
Oak Ridge has actually raised about 15 since pre-COVID, or since we were completely online.
Okay. And how about elementary? How many students are using a third option in elementary? I'm sorry, my internet cut out in the middle of your response there, Mr. Shepherd.
So in the elementary world, Linda, there's we have a lot of classes doing like what Mr. Marchant was talking about with kind of a morning session live and a
AM and PM.
Yeah, there's a lot of those that are happening in the elementary. I would say as far as live streaming and additionally, those are more the outliers, like maybe a couple students here, a couple students there, where I call it a puzzle, putting a puzzle together where families and staff could match up to what people are looking for. There was an outlier student or two where it didn't fit in, so there might be 2 students zooming in while a teacher's teaching in person here or there. So we're talking a couple hundred students kind of scattered, maybe 300 or 400 students kind of scattered though with a couple here and a couple there.
I would add,
Thank you.
since
Thank
I'm doing, in my household, the second grade, and you're doing kindergarten, that those kids, it's harder for them to be engaged consistently with the class because it is just a few.
The feedback I heard, Linda, was a lot of the teachers were very frustrated. The technology was difficult for them, but they were very frustrated that they just couldn't provide the experience like Mr. Moretti is talking about for those students. They just knew they were not
Sure,
doing
I
them justice.
understand. I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
So you did mention that the kids would, where it is working in the elementary and the middle schools, we would be able to continue, correct? That's what the plan would be if this.
Is that do you mean Rosedale and Chico Jr.? Is that what?
Right, right. But I mean, if they're functioning well, the way things are, then why would we want to change it?
But most of the elementary, of Mr. Sullivan is saying, is they're doing just Zooming with the students in the PM
Right.
Sections. They're not actually doing, and as Tom said earlier, whatever we're calling it, hybrid,
Yeah.
where they're actually Zooming with students. And so we would want to continue that. And we would actually want to continue that at the high school where they're Zooming or doing Ingenuity just with students, not doing the mix where we had them in the classroom and at home.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
I think elementary would very much like to have that option there.
Yeah.
To do AM, PM with one in person and one Zooming. kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. But
And,
not,
and if
yeah.
we have something that's working at a school site and the school site wants to do it, I don't know why we would take that away. If the families are
mean-
happy, the staff is happy.
Right. I mean,
That's
this-
the ideal situation.
I mean, this seems to be really largely a problem at the high schools, and, that just makes perfect sense because of the way that, the classes are and everything, so, yeah, Tom?
Thank you. On that note, I know we do have some teachers who are still using Edgenuity, even though they're site-based. Do we have any numbers on that, about how many classes we have that are using Edgenuity with in-person students?
Yeah, we believe it's about 70% that are still using Ingenuity.
7-0?
7-0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as Ms. Staley said earlier, we'll be discussing that in negotiations, what that looks like in the second semester. Tomorrow, we'll start that with our union about what it's going to look like, if that's going to continue or not.
Mr. Shepherd may be able to address this better, but I do believe within the Edgenuity, there were some cycles that teachers needed to finish for grading periods within Edgenuity and maybe cycling off. I don't know if you have some added insight there, John.
Yeah, with cycles and units and modules, because there was so much customization and they were moving things around, they had their pacing planned out. And not knowing where this was going to go, the most consistent thing for them to do was to stay with Edgenuity, although they were really excited to see their kids again. So that part was working out well, that they could continue with the pacing, continue with the rest of the semester, and also get to see some kids.
And Tom, what we are seeing, what they're saying is we're having teachers, once they finish that module, are now going back to their regular instruction, and it's trickling into that as what we're seeing, or we're hearing from teachers.
So I guess what I'm trying to get some clarity on is if we chose or tried to get rid of Edgenuity and everywhere except Oak Ridge for the second semester, who would we be upsetting at that point?
Can you rephrase that? Get rid of Edgenuity at Oak Ridge?
No,
Did you say?
at all sites except Oak Ridge. If we were to
okay,
pull
okay.
Edgenuity from all the regular site-based schools, would we be upsetting any large group of people? Would that be a bad thing for some reason?
I think that's a question that we need to ask the teachers. Just the fact that we have so many that are still on it could be a function of the fact that we've already talked about that's where they started, that they want some continuity to in the semester. I have had some conversations with some teachers who said, I really like Edgenuity because it has given me the option to do the flipped classroom approach, and they're getting instruction, and then I can do small group individualized instruction with kids that are struggling in a particular area. Also had a conversation with a teacher who said, this has been really good for me. I didn't want to do it at first, but it's been really good because I've seen a clear articulation of curriculum with the standards, and I've picked up things that I should be doing that will help my students with their testing and assessments that, were pieces I was missing before. Going into second semester, again, personally, I really believe that those people that are choosing their school sites, what they are wanting is that interaction with their teacher, and for those that are in person with their peer and online with their peers as well. So I do think it would be at semester, not now, but at semester would be timely to transition back to teachers teaching their curriculum and their courses.
We have had comments from principals expressed that students are saying, well, if I'm going to do Edgenuity in classroom that I've been doing at home, why should I even come in? So we have to be very careful about that, because I think the kids want the interaction also, and that give and take.
So wait, Eileen, you had your hand up
I
first.
did. Thank you, Madam President. My support is like I think I've heard from the other board members, is at the semester. I think that we should do as much as possible to limit the amount of Edgenuity being used. I mean, the whole beauty of having students in front of a teacher is our teachers. Chico Unified has amazing teachers. And to substitute that teacher time with Edgenuity does not appeal to me.
Yeah, Kathy?
Well, I want us to be careful here. They're getting 2 hours with their teacher. They're not getting a normal day. And then the Zoom interaction, a teacher may be using a component of Edgenuity to, quote unquote, keep kids on track. I'm concerned, and we had no way of testing at the end of spring and no way of measuring what the learning loss was at that point. We know there was significant learning loss. So the problem is we won't see another testing cycle till the end of spring semester. We don't have major testing that happens in December. So we're kind of on a bicycle with not knowing what the pace is or how far the ride is. So if a teacher wanted to have Edgenuity as a resource, I'm not want to tell them no. I think the critical thing will be, what I'm hearing is, we're probably going to stay AM, PM. And then what happens in the Zooming part, I think, needs to be developed. You may have teachers that go, thank God that's over, and I can do my own thing, but you may have other teachers who, given the range of learning loss and the student mix they have and all the confusion that we were forced to engage in while we tried to do the schedule match, they may want that as a quote-unquote footprint.
I think Edgenuity as a resource is one thing, but it should not be a replacement for direct instruction from the teacher. And as was already mentioned, we have the best of the best in terms of teachers, and they need to be able to do what they do, whether that is in an online format or whether that is in person. At the high school, they are going 3 hours a day. At the elementary, they're 2 hours.
So do you want us at this point to decide something?
We need some direction on two different things. One, option 3, is it the direction of the board? I can see multiple directions we can go, but do we want to continue with the program that we have right now that I think we are hearing is going to be very difficult for our teachers and probably very difficult to negotiate as a result, but where people were trying to do the simultaneous Zoom and teach, do we want to go back to where we originally started? And if you want to be online, then Oak Ridge is your option. And if you want to be in person, then you're at the school site. Or do we want to look at an option where we blow up our master schedules for second semester and work into our master schedules where teachers teach some dedicated online courses, knowing, and I need to be really clear with staff, the board, and most of all our students and community, that we cannot offer the breadth of courses that we offer in our comprehensive high schools for every, option for every student. So they will have to make choices, but we could have that option. So those are, and there's probably a dozen more options, but we need some direction on that.
Okay, so really it's this third option, which we kind of, bumbled into in a sense because we saw that it at Rosedale, and then it just sort of bloomed into this sort of massive thing, and, but it doesn't seem to be working. Eileen, did you?
Well, there was some mention of how do we assess some things, and normally, when you get in this point in a semester, you get probable failure notices sent home from your class. And if Edgenuity has assessment tools that have been being used, we should be able to know how many students need, to be alerted, or their parents too, that, hey, they're not going to pass this first semester. Why can't we do that?
I think that was a big deal, that so many of the students were failing per Edgenuity, correct?
I haven't heard that report.
Yeah.
We had at the two high schools, we had about close to 100% increase in Fs from the first progress report last year to the first progress report this year. The numbers were close to, like, I believe Chico High was 400 and something the year before, 430, then they went up to 742 or something, and then PV was similar on their rate also. We did see an increase in that. We also believe the slow start that we had with Ingenuity was part of that, but yes, our students were struggling learning online. And as we know, it takes a certain family and a certain student to be able to learn that way. We just had to be able to do that and try to get as much learning as we can with our students, but yes, they were struggling in that environment.
And there were a lot of emails, from parents saying, my student is getting these horrendous grades, and, it's because of the way Edgenuity, the grading happens inside that program, and they don't understand it, and, very disturbing.
However, we need to be, upfront about that as well, because when it is tied to the amount of time that you spend on it. So if you're only, when you're at school, you're in a class for 56-minute periods. So the expectation would be you would spend 56 minutes on Edgenuity. And in most cases, that did not happen. And I think what we're also hearing now is online is hard for some students, for many students, whether it's Edgenuity or we're hearing from teachers that when they show up for the synchronous Zoom, even then, they're having a hard time reaching them, but a lot aren't even showing up. They're not Zooming in. So if you're not attending and not participating, then you're not going to have the grades. That said, Edgenuity is rigorous, it is time-consuming, it is nowhere near as engaging as being with a live instructor. So that, too, adds to those failure rates. But I don't want to blame it all on Edgenuity.
Because at Oak Ridge, we had a higher rate of passing because the families chose that and they knew what was going into that model. So we had a higher rate of passing those classes. So that, again, when a family chooses and they know what they're doing, they're getting into that model, we've had a higher success rate.
Yeah, Tim?
I just wanted to add that progress reports did go home as normal in October, notifying parents.
Okay, yeah, Kathy?
So I think we are making decisions. I don't want to get us in a situation where we think we agreed to one thing and we agreed to maybe something else. So it seems pretty clear to me that we've got from Kevin's comments and feedback that we have, boy, this is hard to state. We don't have a groundswell of everybody going back in a classroom in the normal load all-day school for spring. I haven't heard any groundswell around that. Tame is still purple. There are several reds around us. We're orange, thank God. There's 3 yellows above us. But, you know, many comments from teachers and some parents were, we still have Thanksgiving, we still have Christmas. And the national head, she said yesterday that the worst is yet to come. So I don't think we're making a decision that we're going to put all our normal students back in their classrooms, right, for a full day. We're still talking AM, PM. So I don't want, well, what's she waving?
No, Linda,
Oh.
Linda wants to speak.
Okay. She's,
No, I was just stretching. I'm good.
Okay.
okay, so we're talking AM, PM. The question is, what happens with the kids who get 2 hours or 3 hours in the morning and then go home? Where is their educational structure going to come from? Zooming personal information from a particular teacher or something like Edgenuity? I hate to make us such a narrow box that we leave out something that might work with that particular teacher. That's
Okay, well, we need to somehow draw this together. Linda, did you need to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, let me just make a comment. It's become way too complicated. I still don't know how we got to the asynchronous learning. It's been a mystery to me. But I might ask my board colleagues to consider, and this may cost us an enrollment, but to really do away with that third option unless a school like Rosedale wants to use it. Do not mandate it for teachers.
Okay, well, let's have a motion.
Consider that, and let's discuss that, because it's become way too, we don't even know what it's called, like Tom was saying.
Yeah.
There's too many parts and pieces.
I think that people are feeling that way. So
Yeah.
is that a motion?
I second your motion.
For the sake of the
Okay.
minutes, we do need to be clear what that motion is.
Yeah, let's be clear what that is.
Okay, so did you make a motion that go ahead.
At spring semester, we will not offer a third option. We will not offer a mandatory third option for teachers. Families will have to choose in-person instruction or Oak Ridge Academy.
Well, no.
No.
No, that's not it. They won't be mandated to Zoom their class to the students who don't want to come in person at all. That's the third option. They have to be able to.
Kathy, you go ahead and make a motion.
Okay. We are moving to stop mandating that a teacher will, at the same time she's teaching in person, be Zooming to other students.
Just for the sake of language, it's not mandatory currently, it's voluntary.
We haven't mandated it.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
just to
that's
make-
not right either.
To make it for the teachers and for when we begin to send out our selections for our parents, if we could make it in the affirmative, this is what we are going to offer. I think that would help us be really clear about what the parents are going to be able to select. So here are the options that you have to choose from.
Okay, so my understanding, and I wrote this down, was, and we talked about this a little earlier, that it was either going to be online with the teacher, preferably not teaching via Edgenuity, but that the person could utilize that as a resource, or you would be in person. You'd be going to school in person. Those would be the two choices.
But you only go to in person 2 hours or 3 hours.
Well, but that's.
And then you have to have, by the state, you have to have a online option to finish off that experience.
So Dr. Kaiser, just to clarify, for example, if a student was in an in-person first period English 9 class, for a certain amount of time. In addition to those minutes, there's asynchronous expectation from the teacher that does count as the instructional minutes that we require from the state. So it wouldn't necessarily be another platform or Google Classroom. It would be additional asynchronous learning that would be the additional. And does not have to be online. Effectively,
well,
So it could be reading, it could be a writing assignment.
Isn't your student that you're working with, your child, like my grandson, he goes in the morning to school for 2 hours. He comes home and he has to do a half hour of math and a half hour of English. Those are his asynchronous
And we just call it-
assignments.
and we'd use the language coursework instead of homework, so then it's included in the instructional minutes.
Yeah.
But there's also art
Yeah.
and PE that's online but live after that. And there's reading groups, so there's also special groups. So I don't want to limit those options. I don't want us to get into the thing of if it happened on the computer and the teacher was there.
No. That's not even part of option 3, what we're talking about, this
Well,
asynchronous.
No, but we're trying to make it in the affirmative.
Correct. So a suggestion for language could be our options are in-person learning with asynchronous expectations,
Okay,
online-only courses offered from the site, and Oak Ridge.
Right.
okay. Is that good? Linda, did you get all that?
I did get that, and I like that, but that still costs us, what, $300,000 every 2 months at the high school level?
No, that's not including what they're doing now, because now they've opened up all these additional,
Special sections.
sections, and in order to accommodate this way of doing things.
So it would just be the schedule Tom was talking about,
Right,
4-1 or
right.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm all in favor of that.
So can I try and put that into one sentence, if that's okay?
Sure, try, please try.
Tom,
We'll
thank
see.
you.
All right. I move that in the event we are still in the AM/PM schedule for the second semester, we will offer either fully online Zoom courses or fully in-person site-based instruction, as is the current model, or parents may choose to take their students to Oak Ridge.
Okay? And there'd be an assumption that with either of the Zoom and the in-person, that there would be asynchronous, because there's more time.
And that's how it's going now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that if Erica can actually read it back.
Board Member Lando moved that the in-person.
I can't hear it.
Board Member Lando moved the in-person instruction if we are still in the AM/PM model at the beginning of the second semester, will offer online-only courses, online in-person instruction, or take our students to Oak Ridge Academy. Seconded by Board Member Kaiser.
Okay, and so, all right, are we okay to vote on this now?
Well, I have to ask a question.
Sure.
So what if we have that high school student who, their class schedule, there's not online classes available? Like, I'm still seeing some gaps.
You mean
So-
only online?
Right, the only online.
So just like during a typical year, at some point, you do have to make decisions. We sometimes have times where we can't fit everything into a student's schedule because of singleton courses.
Right.
So,
Rework it.
and that was my point earlier, is that we will not be able to offer the very rich course offering that we have at our comprehensive high schools fully online. So I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yep, let's make sure we're clear, but yes, I am ready to vote.
Okay, Eileen?
Just one more clarification. I thought somebody said that at the secondary level, the students could take courses at both Oak Ridge and
Yes, they still can. So for
Yes,
example.
they always have been.
So for-
Okay,
yes.
I just didn't want us to think that we were excluding kids from filling out their schedule because they couldn't get all the classes they wanted at their home school, because you can, it's almost like the, being co-enrolled at Butte.
This motion addresses those options.
Okay, all right, so let's do a roll call vote just in case. So Linda, how do you vote?
Hovey, aye.
Okay, Robinson?
Robinson, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Griffin, aye.
Lando, aye.
Okay, so that passes, so we're all clear about that. But the other thing that came up with this, and that we've also been discussing, and which Mr. Moretti was talking about, was this whole business of investigating and spending time, at this point, checking out the AB schedule, which, several people have said now, 50-50 apparently with the teachers, and I'm not sure if that was high school teachers, or is that all teachers, Kevin?
All teachers.
That was all the teachers.
All teachers. Okay.
It was 50, it was more, I broke it out, it was more elementary than secondary, but if you combine them all, it was within one vote, exactly 50-50.
Okay. But there were other issues surrounding that and things that you brought up which made you believe that for now, we really shouldn't be spending our time considering that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Especially now that you've voted, we're going to need to blow up the schedules to rearrange and put these kids in. If we can't tell the counselors and the school staff what schedule they're going to be going to, they can't do that work yet.
Okay.
So it would be a mess if
And
we
we-
tried to explore a different option.
And we do need a good amount of lead time in order to accomplish that, because we know those counselors and schedulers have been just going nuts with having to do all this stuff. So
That
that's
work
the
will
other.
start tomorrow.
And that's the other decision is to vote on. Do we table that consideration of the AB schedule at this point?
I move yes.
I want to go beyond tabling. I want to just vote that we will not consider the AB schedule for second semester this 2021 school year.
Okay, I'm a little confused here because you made a motion and then you made a motion, so we gotta, okay, just the procedurally where we go on this. Can you two,
I was just offering a friendly amendment to
Okay.
make it clear what we were doing, if
Okay.
Dr. Kaiser agreed that that's what her intent was.
okay,
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
okay, that makes.
And do we
makes
want to
it-
put that in a positive, going with John's suggestion earlier that, make a motion that we will remain in the AM/PM for the
I
remainder of the
thought we had
2021?
actually said that already in the first motion.
We'll just put a smiley face on it.
Okay, so the motion is, if I understand correctly, that we will remain in the AM/PM schedule for spring.
Should we need to do that rather than should we still require having social distancing and small class
You mean
size?
instead of being
Yeah.
full-on,
Yeah.
back
I'm
to
saying
normal?
I don't want to make this motion and stick us in there if we
Yeah.
suddenly drop to yellow. or
Yeah, yeah.
something. All right, thank you.
With Tom's friendly amendment that, in consideration of the fact that we are not going backwards, but that if we should fully open up, then we wouldn't need to do that.
So maybe the motion should be specific to the modified traditional, that Chico Unified's modified traditional schedule will be an AM/PM schedule,
Okay.
so that we don't confuse it with, going into purple or going into yellow.
Okay. Okay? Does that make sense, Erica? Kelly? We're going to see if she can repeat it back.
Okay, so what I have here is a motion made by Board Vice President Kaiser to table the consideration of the AB schedule with a friendly amendment made by Robinson to move that we not consider the AB model for the second semester for the 2021 school year. And then further clarifying, we will, Chico Unified will remain in a modified traditional schedule with an AM/PM schedule for the spring 2020-21 school year.
Unless we go totally out of COVID,
Well,
correct?
should we need to be in social distancing settings is what I originally had,
Okay,
unless that needs to be
does that work?
modified.
That works.
So if we want to look at our, I mean, just to be clear and keep everything in line with what we have done so far, we should be specific. Our stage 2 tier red modified traditional schedule will be AM/PM. You know, otherwise you're making, if we're saying that we are going to be in modified traditional AM/PM for the second semester, if we fall into purple, you have no options. If we go out of COVID, you have no options.
Okay.
Okay, but the problem I have with that is we're not in red, we're in orange. And so,
Are we officially in orange?
yes,
Was it today? Okay.
we've been in
But-
orange, yeah,
It wasn't official until we were there for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It is now.
Okay, so, yeah, but if we say it that way, then should we go into stage yellow or even we're totally back to normal? We couldn't go back to normal?
But then we
Yellow's-
wouldn't have a modified, so as long as we say it's the modified traditional schedule.
Okay, as
Right.
long as we
if it's
phrase
not
it that way
modified,
as
we
the
go back to-
modified? Okay, okay, I just want to make sure that the language is, I know what the language is. Okay, all right, so, yes, Eileen?
Well, I don't want to change anything. I'm
Okay.
just clarifying.
Sure.
The point that even if we have changed into the orange?
Yellow?
Yellow. Okay. We still, or at least I as a board member, want us to continue the mask requirements, the social distancing, the cleaning protocols. That's what's going to keep us in session.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't want it, just because we changed into a lower tier, to just have it be an automatic, reaction that doesn't maintain all of our protocols to keep us safe.
Right.
So I think we're talking apples and oranges here. So right now, we are talking about what will our schedule be when we are in a modified traditional instructional model. I don't think, in fact, I think we told our public that the decision about next semester, whether we were in orange, yellow, purple, what our instructional model was going to be would be made in December.
Yeah, that's the thing, it is consistent.
But this makes that not necessary. Because we were going to come back in December and actually have considered the AB thing.
But now we're not.
But now we're not, right? So then now we're saying this, and this is what we're sticking with, and.
So I
you
think
know.
the decision that would be made in December is if we are in orange, do we come back like our stages of reopening initially as adopted by the board, state back in person with safety measures? Or if we're in yellow, we come back. I mean, the whole stages of reopening that the board voted on, how we come back for second semester, regardless of the color that we're in, the board said that would be decided in December.
Okay. Okay, so are we ready to vote on this now? Any questions,
Yes.
Linda? Are we good?
No, we're good to go.
All righty. If we're all good to go, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, we got
That's
that.
a
Boy,
tough one.
took us a while again, but we got there. All right, so are we doing anything further now with this discussion, or did we resolve everything that needed to be resolved?
The staff has direction from the board. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for all the information you supplied. It was very, very helpful.
Yes, thanks, Kevin.
All right, so then we will move on to the notice of instructional materials. Mr. Shepherd.
This is just our annual report of obsolete materials, just need action by the board.
Okay,
I move 3.3, excuse me.
I'll second that. Is it really like
yeah, it's 3.3.
3.3? Okay, yeah,
It's-
let's do that.
It's obsolete materials. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Next is business services, district office, new building update.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello, Julie.
Hi. Thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it very much. Just wanted to give the board an update on direction that you provided back in late June when you were evaluating the purchase of the Life Touch building and decided not to proceed with the purchase. You directed the district to investigate a Plan B to house the programs, administrative programs that support services the district provides that were currently not adequately housed. So if I could bring up, Erica or John could bring up the plan view, I want to share with you what we've been looking at as far as the site. So on the view that you're looking at right now, the upper right-hand corner of the drawing is the existing district office building. And then in the lower right-hand corner, you see the hatched area that's showing sort of the footprint of where the new building might be placed. And this has been vetted through the district leadership, and we've been working on it to get it to a point where we can broach the issue with the city of Chico. The city of Chico will be the building official on the project since this is not a school site. So the current district office large conference room, which is a portable building, and the special education offices that is also a portable building will be removed from the site in order to make way for this new building to occur. Before we move to the next slide, the district office parking analysis is on the left hand. Oh, go ahead, Linda. I see you.
Julie, I just had a question. You said that this City of Chico would have to be the entity on this because it's not a school, but I thought we were moving Oak Ridge in there.
Yes, but it's not a Field Act site like our schools are, so it will fall under the purview of a City of Chico building permit.
Great, thank you.
Sure, no problem. As I was saying, on the left-hand side of the screen, you show the district office parking analysis. As you might know, the City of Chico has requirements for the number of parking spaces, the medians in between, and the shading with the trees on the parking lot. So we're working on those issues, as you can see on the site plan as well. Are there any questions about the site plan before we move on to the programming?
The city of
Is that more?
The
Nope,
city of
sorry.
Chico's success in getting anything done at all for the last year through building has been almost zero.
That's why I was asking that question earlier. Julie, is this more or less parking spaces than we currently have?
More.
More, okay.
Definitely more.
Yeah,
One of
I
the
see
key
more, but I
features,
can't see.
one of the key features, Linda, and the rest of the board, will be that we will fence off a portion of it that can be closed so that employee parking is more secure. And then there'll be an area for visitors that's an open parking area.
Good.
Yeah, that will be a good safety measure to put in place. And as you all know, we do have a really good working relationship with the city of Chico. They are aware that we're working on the baby steps of this project, so they're expecting to hear from us. If you could move on to the next slide now, you'll see the ingredients of the new building, if you want to say. What is going to be held in the new building, and what are the square footages that are being allotted for each different space. So we plan to house a boardroom, the Oak Ridge Academy, and the Business Services Department, and that includes Fiscal Services Directors Marie and Jacqueline and their groups, as well as restrooms for the students at Oak Ridge, restrooms for the public, a lobby for the public, and a lunchroom for the district office, all of the district office employees to utilize, which will also be able to serve a secondary purpose of providing a concession sort of kitchen area with coffee for when the board is meeting at night and they may have dinner, or there's a meeting that they want to have, snacks or coffee and that sort of thing. So it will be a double duty room. We're really trying to be economical and flexible with those spaces and make sure that the spaces can serve more than one purpose.
Would CTE Hospitality participate?
Not likely. It would
Okay.
be something like what's in the large conference room now, where you have the kitchenette area, where you have some storage and the ability to put things on the counter and bring them into the conference room to serve. So if you look at the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll see the total there is 8,820 square feet. We've plugged in a number of 1,323 square feet additional. That would provide space for corridors and walkways and circulation space that are necessary, making a grand total of 10,143 square feet. This is utilizing the program that we originally worked on for the Life Touch building. So the space allocations are the same space allocations that we were using for these departments over there at that building. We need to mention that because of COVID, the Oak Ridge program is certainly expanded, blown up and expanded. So they're serving a lot more students now than we had anticipated at that time. We don't think that we will continue to serve that many students forever, but we do need to revisit this and make sure that we're getting a right fit square footage allocation for that program. So we'll be working really closely with Rhonda and John Shepherd just to make sure that we get the right fit for that program. One thing I also want to mention is that the boardroom and the seating area for the boardroom, as I mentioned earlier, we're planning to integrate as much flexibility and use of the building as possible. We want to make the room dividable so that it can be separated into different meeting spaces that can be used all day long. And with the area that the boardroom or the board sits, where the equipment for presentation is housed, could be closed and locked off so that it is always set up for board meetings to take place. So we'll save on having to set up that equipment on a regular basis, or have somebody have to borrow a microphone or a cable or something when you don't expect it, and so that our board setup will always be ready to go. I will let Kevin chime in here and address the cost estimate and the funding mechanism. Kevin, if you can do that for us, then we can open it up for any questions.
Sure. Just as a reminder to the board, we had a presentation on our Fund 42, which is the former redevelopment pass-through dollars. We are expecting to receive over $17 million through 2045. Currently, the only earmark on those dollars is for support of our security camera system, which we budget annually at about $250,000 to $300,000 a year. We have been receiving anywhere from $700,000 to $1 million annually in this fund. The current balance at the end of last year was $3 million. And so we really are bringing this to you as, we think, an investment of those RDA dollars versus just using them operationally towards a building that will benefit the district for a long period of time. So we would use whatever cash balance was in Fund 42 to put down a substantial down payment for this construction, but we would want to finance a portion of it with the future revenues from the pass-through, which are very secure. They're really an tax increment of property taxes. So that's how we would pay for this. The cost estimate you have is a very rough cost estimate. We believe it's conservative, and it's really just based on square footage.
Okay, do we need to take any action, or are we just here for information?
Julie, I have a quick question. How many teachers are accommodated at Oak Ridge Academy in this plan?
Julie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. The spreadsheet shows 2 teachers as being accommodated, and we understand now they have 10 teachers in the morning and 10 teachers in the afternoon. However, if you look at the top of the Oak Ridge spreadsheet portion, there's a large classroom of 1,300 square feet that could easily be divided into working areas for that many teachers in the morning and in the afternoon. They do not need separate office spaces. It's more of an open bullpen space with a desk and a place for the student to work when they come in to visit them twice a week. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, I do think we need to continue to work with Oak Ridge staff on that, because I think sometimes the noise carryover when they're too close to each other. We'll just need to work closely with them.
I reviewed this yesterday with Rhonda Odlum and talked about the expansion. What's nice about the flexibility of the boardroom is the dividable space. So we've been talking about projections, what enrollment could look like for Oak Ridge, and adapting the space. Again, this is a document that was based on much different enrollment numbers. I think we're in good.
Plus, we're also thinking on 13 and 14, Julie, if I'm correct, that we would probably keep our grant. It'll go down to 1 after this year, unfortunately. They'll probably be in the district office and not in the new building.
We also talked about the restroom space that's allocated there could be adjusted. So that there are many things within this that we think we can adjust to make it work.
And I think we're at the point where we want to bring this back to the board, get your input, but then we also understand it's going to be a necessity to engage neighbors and more make this to the public, but we don't have the answers to all those questions yet. So it was really conceptually to get this drawing down, have Julie go to work with the city, figure out what those answers to those questions are, and then really invite neighbors and the public into this conversation as we get further along in the planning process.
So it sounds like we should make
Mr. Boltzmann?
Oh.
I have a question. Kevin?
Yes.
Do you have any idea, ballpark idea, of what the debt financing would cost us?
Not offhand, Linda. It depends on our ability, probably for a loan this frankly small compared to some of the other ones that we do. We may actually look for a private placement. So right now interest rates are low, and so it'd be actually a good time to take maybe advantage of that. So I think, one, the timing would be good for us, but we do have a very steady revenue stream. My suggestion would be always, when you're dealing with debt, to try and have the lowest repayment term you possibly can to reduce those interest costs overall. So, we'd have to take a look at the amount of revenue we're expecting, making sure we have enough to take care of our security system over those years as well. But there's certainly even a large surplus, even after we made this investment in the future. So I think, to answer your question, I don't have the exact numbers, but the goal would be short repayment term, 10, 15 years, and pay it right out of the Fund 42 extra dollars.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to move that we give staff and Julie the go-ahead on this. I think that not just our questions, but our ability to have understandable discussion with the neighborhood going to require that the city stepped in actively and start to facilitate this? It's,
Kathy?
what?
Sorry, Dr. Kaiser. This is on the agenda as an informational only.
Yeah, it's
item.
informational.
Oh, I thought you said that you needed
No,
action.
if I said that, I apologize. It was
Oh.
really to bring this as back, to tell you
Okay.
where we were with that part B. That
All
part B.
right.
Yeah, I think he was just explaining that process.
I think it's
and-
exciting. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
yeah. Okay, well, does anyone else have any questions for Kevin while we're here? Okay, well, great. So we'll expect to get that back and for you to go through the rest of that process with the neighbors and City of Chico and, as it goes along. So the next item is an discussion action item, and it has to do with the Charter Schools Measure K project requests.
Yes, so Core Butte Charter is requesting, and it's been approved by the Measure K Charter Facility Committee, that they would like to purchase some more laptops. Because of COVID, they do not want their students having to share computers, and they're moving toward a 1-to-1 ratio for every student having their own. And so they're requesting that you authorize $40,000 for the purchase of the new units. They would have brought these to you much sooner, but they've been in such short supply. That was actually on the agenda for several months ago. And so we're bringing it forward to you now because the units are available for them to purchase.
Great. I'd like to move approval, if I might.
Second.
Okay, motion by Linda Hovey, second by Dr. Kaiser. Any further discussion needed? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All righty, the next item
Thank you.
has to do, thank you, Julie, has to do with setting the date of our organizational meeting. The proposed date is December 9th. So that would be the time when new members are sworn in, old members exit stage left, and new officers are elected.
I moved past 3.1.
Okay?
I'll second that.
I'll second.
Oh, Tom beat you to it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Kaiser, second by Tom Lando. All those in favor of having the organizational meeting on December 9th, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. All righty, that closes our meeting. I'm going to adjourn it, and we are going to go into closed session.
Right.